What's up, everybody? This is Dave here from Comics Games Life, and today's story is from Absolute Batman issue number 3. And it picks up exactly where issue number 2 left off, with two stories. One of the flashback with a young Bruce Wayne dealing with the death of his father, and another taking place in current day, as Batman and Alfred are escaping the Gotham PD, as well as the party animals. So let's start right here with Batman and Alfred. Now, they're on the run in a behemoth of a vehicle, which is a version of the Batmobile that's been converted from a construction dump truck. And it's barreling its way through the streets of Gotham. And you have GCPD try to block off the streets, and you have the party animals on motorcycles shooting machine guns at it. All the while, Alfred is grabbing onto one of the railings trying to lay down some cover fire. And while this is happening, Alfred can't help but think that over the past 40 years in his espionage career, he has nearly perfected the art of stealth. And now, after meeting Batman, his face is pretty much exposed for the world to see, as he's an unwilling participant in this car chase / gunfight in the heart of Gotham City. And he can't help but think to himself, I might actually hate Batman. If you remember back in issue 2, the whole reason why Alfred had met up with Batman is because he wanted to work together to take down the villain Roman Sionis, who's the leader of the party animals. And he's telling Batman that he believes that Roman isn't just this gang leader, but actually an international terrorist known as the Black Mask. And in the middle of this conversation, Alfred is trying his best not to get shot, and he's yelling at Batman, "Can't this piece of junk move any faster?" So Batman subtly responds to Alfred saying, "I'll pretend you didn't say that," and then pushes a button. And then all of a sudden, this behemoth of a vehicle that's practically a building on wheels starts to transform and converts to a more sleeker version. It's still giant in size, but it looks more like a dune buggy or something out of Mad Max, becoming much more aerodynamic and go from barreling through the streets to speeding through the city. But they're still not able to shake the motorcycle riding party animals. So Batman gives Alfred access to this Batmobile's double barrel machine guns. And as he's firing away, he's noticing that this thing isn't shooting bullets, but electrically charged mini batarangs that seems to explode on impact. Now, Alfred is impressed by Batman's setup, his gear, his weaponry, but he tells him this type of stuff isn't going to be enough to stop Black Mask. And Batman simply says, "Then I'll just build bigger." And then Alfred reminds Batman of something, because he heard Black Mask say that he's willing to offer Batman a deal. And so Alfred's telling Batman that he should consider this, because if all it takes is for Batman to back off to allow the party animals to quit causing mayhem and riots in the streets for the betterment of the city, he's telling Batman that he should just lay low. And Batman says, "How? By quitting? Forget it." Because Batman's not about that noise. Because the whole reason he's on this mission is to protect the innocents and rid Gotham of crime and corruption. And just because this new threat is showing its fangs, he's not going to turn a blind eye to everything else that's wrong in this city. And Alfred seems to be throwing this sales pitch at Batman, saying that this guy Black Mask, he's tied to other countries, international governments. He serves some of the richest people in the world. That I'm sure if you take his deal, he'll probably offer you something huge, like maybe even $100 million. Imagine what Batman could do with that kind of money. And while they're having this back and forth, this Jeep pulls up with a 50 cal mounted on the back, and it's just sending rounds downrange at the Batmobile. And now we get to see another aspect of the Batmobile's capabilities, as Batman unleashes a wrecking ball with an imprint of the bat symbol etched on one side of it, and it swings and lands dead on, destroying the party animals' Jeep. While that seems to take the party animals out of commission, GCPD is still hot on their tails, and it seems like the entire department is after these guys. And while back inside the Batmobile, Alfred and Batman are still having this discussion, because he can tell that this is somewhat of a sales pitch. He asks them, "What's in it for you for me to make this deal?" And so Alfred breaks it down. He says that if he does make this deal with you and offers you money, we can track that transaction, so I can gather the intel and data that I need, and I can get out of this city. My people can take out Black Mask, and you, with that money, can build Batman big in Gotham. Really big. Now, at this point, they've reached the edge of the street, and they're at one of the piers in Gotham. So what's ahead of them is the ocean, and what's behind them is pretty much all the cops in the city. And you have Commissioner Harvey Bullock yelling on the microphone, telling these guys to get out their vehicle. And Alfred's kind of freaking out because he can't be caught. I don't know what kind of reprimand he would get from his employers if his cover is blown. But like I said before, he's lived in the world of stealth. So I'm sure there's skeletons in his closet and secrets that he knows that his employers might actually want to see him dead, then rescue him out of a Gotham prison. So he's telling Batman, "Hey, do you have any other tricks up your sleeve? Because we make a good team, kid. So let's keep it going." And so Batman tells him to pull the lever that's right in front of him. And Alfred's like, "All right, this one right here. And then boom, he gets launched into the sky. And you could tell by his lack of aerial finesse that he had no idea that that was going to happen. But while Alfred is airborne, the hatch in the Batmobile shuts closed and Batman guns it and dives straight into the ocean. Now this giant vehicle has no problem sinking to the bottom of the seafloor, which is probably why Batman chose this giant monster truck to use as his getaway car. Because while underwater, he drives his way into a giant sewer pipe. And at some point, he comes out the other end into a secret hideaway filled with all sorts of other vehicles. So this puts an end to some of the questions that I had previously about this Batmobile. Now, I was wondering if this was the only vehicle that he had, but seeing this garage, we know that that's definitely not the case. He has several more. I'm sure Alfred's motorcycle is in here as well. So I'm definitely interested to see what other construction vehicles that he has in there modified for crime fighting. And it would be kind of cool to see something even a little bit playful, like a golf cart that's been like modified to like climb walls or something. And it's too bad that Alfred didn't get to see any of this because Batman ditched Alfred and left him up top treading water. So I don't know if the GCPD got him or he was able to slip away. So now let's rewind the story and go back in time with a young Bruce Wayne and a young Selina Kyle. Now it didn't take much for her to convince him to sneak out of his window and join her on the rooftops of Gotham. And this seems like something that they do normally. However, Selina seems a bit more adept at this than Bruce, as at one point they're actually walking a tightrope from one building to the next, and Bruce is having a little difficulty. So Selina gives him some advice and tells him not to be worried about anything that's around him and to use his cat eyes, seeing as how cats have great vision but only for short distances. So don't look down, don't look around you, only focus on exactly where you're trying to get to. And just before he gets to the ledge, he trips, but Selina is right there to calm him down and catch him and bring him back up to the rooftop. And this is really cute because even at this young age, you can tell that there's puppy love developing, because after she grabs his hand and pulls him up to the roof, their hands stay clutched together as they walk along the rooftops. And this leads to them talking about some personal things, like how Selina is in the foster system and she's been with 4 families in the past year, pointing out that her last family was a bad one. And that's why she's always come up to the rooftops hanging out with the cats and even with Bruce, because it seems like they're the only positive things that she has in her life. And Bruce tells her that his mom loves her, so there's no reason why she can't move in with them. But Selina stops him right there and says, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Let's talk about something happier. And now she goes on to mention that now that the zoo has been closed, the lion that they had there on display got sent back into the wild. So now he's living free with the other animals. But Bruce doesn't quite see why that would be something to be happy about and begins to ask why they're here in this place. And as they sneak into the back door, we realize that this place is actually a movie theater. And Selina tells Bruce to look ahead. And as she says this, the screen lights up and the movie The Mark of Zorro begins to play. And this immediately sets something off in Bruce's mind, and he gives Selina a glare and asks her, what do you think you're doing? Because this was the film that Bruce's father was actually going to take him to see the same day of the shooting, which also happens to be the movie that Thomas and Martha Wayne went to see on their first date. And then Bruce turns away to leave, but Selina grabs his hand and tells him to stop and goes on to remind him about the joke that he made about the lion the day of the shooting, about how the lion must have it made here in this zoo because it can just sit around, it gets fed, and it can relax and just do nothing all day. And then your father told you about how the lion doesn't have any meaning here. And then she goes on to point out to Bruce that he has gifts and talents that a lot of other kids don't have. And this is your chance for you to mean something. I know it can be scary and dangerous, but remember what I said about the cat eyes. Just focus on the things right in front of you and block everything else out. At this point, Bruce had enough and he says, you know what? I'm gone. And just then, Bruce gets bum rushed by a group of familiar faces because they weren't alone in this theater, because Harvey, Ozzy, Eddie, and Waylon, they're doing what all great friends should do, and that's support one another in their time of need and hurt. And they do this by dragging Bruce back to one of the seats in the theaters, shoving some popcorn in his face, and start making fun of this old black and white movie that they're all gonna sit and watch this movie from beginning to end together as one group. And in this moment, this is exactly what Bruce needed. A little bit of tough love from the people who care about him the most. And you could tell by the smile on his face that he understands this. But to me, what makes this moment even more precious is that you see someone sitting all the way in the back of the theater. And that someone is Martha Wayne, who I'm assuming put all this together. Now for me, while reading this was a very unexpected emotional moment for me. So 2 big thumbs up to the creators, Snyder and Jagoda, because the level of emotion that they're trying to create, I definitely felt that. But moving on as we head back into current day. And now we see Bruce sitting down in the workshop or laboratory of Eddie, aka Edward Nygma. And sitting next to him is this partly built cyborg, which that during this conversation that they're having, we find out that this is most likely the Absolute Universe's version of the Riddler. Because Bruce wants to talk about this mask that he picked up from the party animals. And Eddie says, well, he is me and you and, well, Everyone. He contains 4/5 of all human knowledge. So go on, ask him something. And Bruce begrudgingly asks, does he have a name? And Eddie says, well, I was thinking about Al, sort of a play on AI. But now I'm thinking maybe something to do with riddles, like Riddle Man. Because the great riddle of humanity is to try and live forever. Am I right? And we all exist in this dude. But never mind, just go, ask him. And Bruce sighs, yo, Al, how do the party animals' skulls work? And then Al begins to spit out the answers and says, well, Bruce, the mask has 3 functions. 1, it completely hides the user's identity from all global and local deciphering means. 2, it creates a wallet for the wearer connected to a highly protected private network of cryptocurrency called Blackcoin. And 3, as you know, it provides objectives and targets for the wearer with different valuations. And this piques Bruce's interest, and he's like, valuations? And the robot continues, arson, robbery, murder. Each one has a different value in Blackcoin, but we're talking tens and hundreds of thousands. Members can get wealthy quite fast. So Bruce wants to know, how can we disrupt this network? And Al begins to point out, the network is far too expansive for someone to take down. You could take out a local server, but the network is satellite based. There are deposits of these masks all over the world, hundreds, maybe thousands of members. And he tells Al, hey, there has to be some way. And Al says blankly, there is not. And Bruce continues his conversation with Al and tells him, but see, you don't actually know everything, Al. And then he looks over to Eddie to chime in. And Eddie does. And he tells him, just destroy the mask and forget it. And Bruce is like, come on. And Al says, he doesn't want to help you, Bruce, even if he could. I may not know everything, but I know that much. And Bruce is like, why? I'm just asking questions. And Eddie says, you know what the oldest known riddle is, Bruce? What building does a man walk into blind and walk out with sight? Easy. A school. Knowledge is vision. Me, I see a lot. Too much sometimes. It's why friendship hasn't been easy for me to find and why I value yours so much. So this is me looking at you and asking you to please stop. And just then Bruce gets a phone call. He answers it and it's actually Harvey on the other line. And Harvey just starts talking and he says, I have 1 minute before I have to get back in court with the judge who hates my face. But I did what you asked. I looked into the ARC-M fund and this can get me fired. A lot of the funding comes from a company called JK Holdings, highly diversified subsidiaries across the globe. But one specialty is building secure facilities, private prisons, Bruce, and not just ordinary ones either, black sites. And these sites, they have investments from biotech companies, pharmaceutical companies, even genomics firms. Whatever is happening at these places, it's not good. So before going on to the next scene, I'd like to kind of break a couple of things down that happened in this conversation. One, Harvey mentions this thing called an ARC-M fund. So when Batman was on the computer in that building just before it got ransacked by GCPD and the party animals, he found a bunch of files named ARC. And after the word ARC was a letter, like ARC A, ARC B, ARC C. So every one of these ARCs is one of those private prison black sites whose purposes right now we don't know, but it doesn't seem like they're good ones. And there's another ARC being built in Gotham. And you guessed it, this ARC is named ARC-M as a play on word for Arkham. So this is going to be Absolute Gotham's Arkham Asylum. And it's currently being built by a company called JK Holdings, which I'm assuming is a reference to the Joker, who we saw way back in issue number 1 and found out a few things about him, like he doesn't laugh and he's a highly trained assassin and he's a billionaire. And like what I said about the ARCs, they're all over the world. And ARC-M is actually going to be the biggest prison yet. And we know that somehow, some way, Black Mask is tied into this as well. And as Bruce is putting these things together, he's realizing he's not up against street thugs, bank robbers, and run-of-the-mill murderers. He's up against armies, corporations that can attack from all angles and every side with limitless funding. So the things that Alfred was mentioning before, it's just sinking in deeper and deeper the longer he thinks about it. Now, in this next scene, Bruce is at his mom's townhouse, having a bowl of cereal before she heads to work. But he's not there on just some friendly visit. He actually wants to talk to her because she knows she's a big supporter of Jim Gordon and puts herself out there publicly in regards to the things going on in the city. And he tries to convince her that maybe she should lay low. Things are getting pretty hot right now. And you can tell that the reason why he's bringing this up is because of the things that Alfred said about Alfred telling Batman to lay low. Because even though at the time when Alfred was bringing this up, Batman was showing his defiance of this idea, but since then you can tell he's been thinking about it. And then his mom says it's because of the chaos and craziness that's going on that she can't lay low, that she needs to be out there even more. And he's telling her all this is doing is putting a target on your back. And she continues on with what she was saying before on how she believes in what Jim Gordon's doing. And she's not going to sit around and just watch the city fall apart. She's going to do everything she can to stop that from happening. And Bruce says, what if you can't? What if this is too big? And then she tells him, that's who I am. That's who we are. Your father was the same way. And then Bruce gets a little disrespectful and says, yeah, and look what happened to him. And Martha, being mom of the century, can see through all that. And she knows that Bruce is feeling conflicted and still hurt over losing his father. And she tells him, I'm going going to kiss you now, just so that I don't slap you. So after she leaves to work, Bruce just sits there with the weight of the world on his shoulders. But now we're going to get a quick glimpse into what's going on with the Black Mask, aka Roman Sionis. And we see his giant luxury yacht parked at one of the piers. And Commissioner Harvey Bullock is making his way on board. And he's met with the corrupt Mayor Hill. So he's definitely in the pocket of Black Mask. And Bullock is straight to the point. He doesn't pull any punches and says, hey, I don't know why you asked me here, but you're not getting my endorsement. Me and Jim are tight. And the governor with a sly smile on his face says, whoa, slow down. I'm not here to steal you away from Jim. I just wanted to thank you for all that you do and to introduce you to a friend of mine. And then he turns and looks up to the yacht where he sees a man with purple skin and a white suit. And he asks, hey, Dr. Benjamin, permission to come aboard? Is he available? So the reference to he is obviously Black Mask, but the character of Dr. Benjamin is actually an established character in the Prime Universe. His full name is Dr. Benjamin Stoner, and he was the head doctor at Arkham Asylum, who eventually was turned insane by the Lords of Chaos and became the villain Anti-Fate. So seeing as how he's a doctor in this universe as well, he's probably going to play somewhat of the same role as being in charge at Ark M to some capacity. But for now, Dr. Benjamin brings him onto the yacht and takes him to go see Black Mask in his body room, which happens to be his training gym. And this is where we find Black Mask sparring against Bibbo Babowski. See, so this is why I love this Absolute Universe so far. It's fun to see these new versions of old characters, because originally Bibbo Babowski is actually known as Superman's greatest fan, because traditionally he's a former boxer who owns the bar Ace of Clubs in Suicide Slum. And even though he's a brute that has a heart, because he would do things like dress up like Santa Claus and give presents out to kids in the neighborhood, as well as briefly after the death of Superman, actually put on a costume himself to try and fight crime. So as much as I like to see him in Absolute Batman right now, it's kind of sad what happens. So now, just after finding out that Commissioner Bullock is a huge fan of Bibbo Babowski in this quote-unquote sparring match, we see Black Mask nimbly and brutally make easy work of him. And to add insult to injury, he's actually having a conversation with the Commissioner at the same time. And Black Mask is pretty much telling Commissioner Bullock that Gotham is a good place, but has been overrun by bad people. And he would like to use the resources that he has to purge Gotham of these bad people. And the bad people he's referring to are the party animals as well as Batman. And this does catch the attention of Bullock because he doesn't like either one of them. And he goes on to say more, saying things like he's a pacifist and he's been all over the world and brought peace to places that have been consumed by war. And he reassures Bullock that he's not trying to push Jim Gordon out of his place in office. And he understands the bond that the two of them share, seeing as how they both served in the military together. All he wants to do is back up the GCPD as much as possible. For instance, he knows that they've gone to the city and requested 4 RVs and some air support. And he tells them, with the people that I know, I can get you 10 RVs and all the air support you'll ever need. And no need to worry because this is all above board and perfectly legal. And at this point, Black Mask has Bibbo in a rear naked choke, and no matter how much he taps, he doesn't let go. Only until Bullock yells, he's had enough, let him go. And so he lets him go, but Bibbo is in bad shape. His eyes are wide open, bloodshot, and he's not conscious. So Harvey's asking, is he dead? And Black Mask just says, of course not, he's perfectly fine. Come, let's go into the next room and talk about peace. Now it's clear that the sadism that Black Mask is known for is still a part of his nature in the Absolute Universe. Now I kind of wondered about this scene because what was the whole point of this? And I think I have an idea. Because if you look at Black Mask, he's lean, slender, and you have this giant hulking fighter in the way of Bibbo, who's sort of the same body type like Commissioner Bullock. So I think that Black Mask putting on this display that he can easily take down a bigger opponent was like sending a hidden message over to the Commissioner. And especially if you match that with his language of peace and wanting to help out, you can definitely tell that this individual is not someone who you want to trust or get on their bad side. And I think a dual purpose to this scene is telling us, the readers, that Black Mask is capable of even taking on Batman, someone who's 2 to 3 times his size. So we're probably going to see them in a hand-to-hand combat situation at some point in the future, and laying the groundwork so when they do go toe-to-toe, it's not going to be such a surprise that Black Mask will be such a worthy adversary in a fight with Batman. So in the last pages of this issue, we're going to see a few things. First, Alfred takes a visit to go see his daughter. Now we saw in issue number 1 where he tried to contact her via phone, and she pretty much told him to stay out of her life and never call her again. And this time he pulls up in a nondescript van across the street from a school that she teaches at, and we see her mingling with some kids having a good time playing kickball, until one of the kids accidentally kicks the ball a little too far and it lands out in the street, which rolls right past the van that Alfred's in. So before Julia is able to recognize him, he drives off. Second, we're shown a broadcast of Mayor Hill giving a speech where he says that he's proud to receive the endorsement of Police Commissioner Harvey Bullock, and also goes on to say that Jim Gordon has failed this city. So it's obvious that Black Mask, Silver tongue, was able to convince Bullock to back up Mayor Hill. And to finish up his speech, he goes on to mention the violence that happened at the Gotham Zoo shooting, where we learned that after that incident, they dedicated this memorial light that shines on the anniversary of that horrible incident. And he's telling everyone that this year we should not turn the light on because due to all the violence that Gotham has been swept up in, it's almost like a mockery to the evil that took place on that day. And at the last part of that broadcast, we see the news anchors asking the question, out of everything that's going on in Gotham City, where is Batman and how will he respond? And we're going to get answers to that question because the last thing that we see is Batman sitting in that same room that he was locked up in when his father was killed. And looking up at him is that party animal mask that he was able to recover because he is also on the phone with Black Mask. And that deal that he mentioned earlier is going down right now. And he's telling Batman, I will give you $200 million to back down for 1 week. And I'll make sure that the party animals take it down a notch in Gotham. Now think about all the good Batman can do with that kind of money. The cars, the weapons, the tech. He'll be larger than life. Something epic. And Bruce cuts him off and says, enough. I'll take the deal. And that is the end of issue number 3. Another solid issue. I feel like they're hitting the nail on the head with this series so far. Now, although we're left with Bruce accepting Black Mask's deal, I honestly think that he's not going to receive that money because the whole draw and appeal of this new Absolute Batman is that he's a blue-collar worker. He doesn't have the resources to be this larger-than-life superhero with all kinds of gadgets and vehicles and planes and things like that. So by putting this money in his pocket and essentially giving him a cheat code to become the Batman that we're all familiar with, I think counters the whole purpose of this grittier, darker, depressing Absolute Batman. But anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. I appreciate you all out there. I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Oh yeah, don't forget about me.